Growing up broke, I never owned a PS2 or Xbox until 2016, when I became very stupid with my income. I always owned a Nintendo product, so every time I was at the Rogers, I would see this game and wonder why it wasn't on GameCube. The other one was, so why not this one? It's because Universal is terrible. Long story short, I never got to play this one until now, and I hated it for a bit. I booted up the game and I started walking around. The starting area wasn't as it seemed. It didn't feel like Crash. Everything was so open. There were no box gems. The gems were just collectibles around the map. You immediately die instantly when you run into a nitro, even if you have Aku Aku. Seriously, why the hell did they think this was a good idea? And worst of all, it did the worst thing a platformer could ever do. Fall damage. But as I was about to quit the game and give up this review or write something angry about it, I decided to continue on. And the music, the style, the presentation, and the boss battles were just so amazing that even though the game was obviously rushed, the level design was kind of hit and miss, and it was completely different than the original Crash Bandicoot, it had some fun moments. And I finally realized something. This game has the exact opposite problems as this one. Wrath of Cortex had great gameplay, obviously not because of the originals, but it was still really good, while Twinsanity had a better presentation and great ideas, while the gameplay just felt like a generic platformer hero game. I don't know what to call it. Though overall, I think I like both of them about the same. But I've gone on long enough. This video is about Twinsanity. I already have a terrible video about Wrath of Cortex anyway, so go watch it or I'll find you. But how did I enjoy playing Twinsanity? Well, like I said at the start, I hated it for a bit, so let's rip into it right at the start. I think that's a good way to do it. Let's look at this horrible start. Oh my God, we're already off to something terrible. First thing I noticed jumping into this is that it controls completely different than any of the Crash Bandicoot game, like I already mentioned. And it's not a good thing. This controls like a very, very generic, basic platformer. It doesn't even feel like Crash at all. In fact, going to what I said before, they changed a whole bunch of main Crash mechanics to make it not like Crash, to make it something new and fresh. And it doesn't work in the slightest. There's no box count. Aku Aku doesn't make you fully invincible. You can still run into nitros and die. And the biggest change that I think is the hallways. They're not hallways in this like every other Crash game. Every Crash game before was just kind of a hallway. This one's not really a hallway. It kind of is, somewhat isn't. It's an extremely linear game. And I'm honestly not sure if I like it or not. On one hand, you have this big open area to explore and run around in, but at the same time, there's still hallways a bunch of times. They're just really, really, really wide. And then a lot of the times to get the gems, you just go off the path to do a little area that has a gem in it, and that's all you pretty much do. And then it's more hallways, so it's kind of like they made it different but didn't. The game is basically a really big hallway with some big areas you can walk around in, and you can also go off the path to a gem area, do a quick challenge for the gem and get a gem, and then you walk on the hallway again. Here's a MS Paint drawing of the map. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever drawn. Please appreciate it. Okay, stop looking at it. You're embarrassing me now. Going back to being a terrible, horrible human being, why cannot you? Why can't you skip cutscenes? Why? Why can't you skip them? You can skip some of them, so they obviously implemented it, but you can't skip all of them. Like, why? Sometimes when you die to a boss, you have to rewatch the cutscene all over again. That's annoying because it takes forever. Sometimes the levels are really hard. Sometimes you steamroll them. And sometimes you have to fight with them to make them work. The Nina levels. The grappling hook does not work half the time. I'm mashing the button, I'm pushing the button, and sometimes it just won't go off. Like, why doesn't it work? I lost so many lives trying to use this damn thing. I think this is the hardest part of the game in this. Oh yeah, the game was rushed. Thanks, Universal, you pieces of shit. I've gone a little crazy, but one more thing I need to complain about that's gonna make me lose my mind. One huge thing you should never put in any platformer, but it is in this one. Fall damage. Why, in God's name, would you do that? What is wrong with you? What is with these dumbass deceit positives? If I had to pick one thing that pulled me into the game, I think it would be the music. The music fits the vibe of Crash so well, and it's an entirely new soundtrack, and it sounds completely different. But it just fits so well. Honestly, when I started playing this game, I hated it. But the more I got into it and the more the music cranked up, I
realized that I actually liked it a lot, and it set this tone for the series going forward. Tag team racing, and I believe these things also had similar soundtracks as well. The world visually looks great as well. Pretty much a lot of the parts, not really every part, but a lot of the parts. And I think my favorite visually, again, was the Nina level. Like, this looks amazing through the entire thing. I like the story and some of the jokes that were had as well. It's obvious where it was rushed, because you'd have instances where like Cortex is dying and then 1 second later he's alright and he just goes on his way and does his thing. The bosses were also pretty much mostly fantastic. Like Mecha Bandicoot and his theme was amazing, and that was the first boss. Like that first boss like punched me in the face. That's how good it was. Like it was amazing. The only boss I really didn't like was Engine, because he was kind of boring, but it wasn't too terrible. The only terrible boss was the first phase of the final boss, because you again have the grappling hooks that barely work. Overall, I think I will be replaying this game if I find a copy at my local Rogers Video. Wait, what year is it? 2024. Inflated pricing retro game store. I like this game more than I thought I would. I thought it would be terrible at the start, but I grew to love it. And I'm happy to have played it. If I played this as a kid, I would have loved it so much as a little man. But I still love it now, so it all works out. Basically, the moral of the story is that Universal Studios sucks dick.